At the same time, the 2023 registration process at the universities of Johannesburg and Witwatersrand will be closing soon. Earlier, SABC News reporter Nozintombi Miya spoke to the Registrar at Wits University, Crosley.
We're at Wits University, one of the largest universities in Gauteng province. It can accommodate more than 44,000 students, and this is an important number, especially considering this year where we do know that the matric class of 2022 qualified. Quite a large number of them qualified. 26.7% of them qualified with a matric exemption to be able to go to university. And to talk to the university here at Wits around the issues that they have with registration and administration processes of students for this financial year 2023, I have with me the Registrar, Mrs. Carol. Thank you so much for joining me, Registrar. This year has been a big year for the matriculants. 26.7% of the matriculants applying to universities. What do you think you could attribute such a huge number to?
I think for many of our matriculants, it's an opportunity for them to have proved themselves. We certainly are pleased, along with the rest of the nation, that the matric pass rate, there has been that improvement. And of course, remember that universities attract probably just your top applicants. And that means that a number of students who are applying to the university, sadly, because of the limitation on the number of places, it means that sadly for many of them they won't get into the university of their choice. But obviously we want to encourage those matriculants to really not just see university as the only option post-schooling, post-matric schooling. So we're looking forward to welcoming them, and in fact we have started doing that. Today is our last day of registration for our new first-time students. In other words, we call them the F10s, so it's first time entering into university, and today is our last day to register those students.
How many first term or first registering students did you get for this year? How many applications of those did you get?
We got well over 101,000 applications, and that is 101,000 students, applicants applied. We've got place for just over 6,000, and each of those students probably would have applied for 2 or 3 programs. So if we're looking at the applications itself, it's well over 300,000, but in terms of applicants, warm bodies, over 101,000 matriculants applied for the just over 6,000 places.
That's simply too much, though.
Very much so. But it's not a problem that's unique to Wits, and in fact the registrars talk amongst themselves, and we know that many of the universities received literally 13, 14, 15 times the number of places that they've got available. And I think it just speaks to some of the challenges we have in our post-schooling education environment in South Africa, in that many of our matriculants don't feel that they have enough options beyond university. So if they don't get into university, it's, well, what do I do now? And we certainly, as a country, we need to bolster our post-schooling education sector.
We know that the Minister of Higher Education last week had suggested that students be open to the idea of going to FET colleges. Yes. What is your thought on that?
Very much so, and we encourage that because we had well over 600,000 matriculants. As you've pointed out, many of them received matric exemption, but many of them fell just below that, but it still means that there are opportunities out there. But I think if we are going to do that, then we need to bolster our post-schooling education sector, and we certainly need to make sure that our TVETs and other options are ready and have the capacity to absorb those students.
You said such an important point, bolstering our post-high school education. What suggestions do you have on that? University is the first prize for most students. But aside from universities, FETs, I think at a school level, how can we start having conversations with kids about the reality of the situation in South Africa, their financial reality, and what is possible for them in that space?
I think it's also related to career guidance. I think it's a complex matter that certainly we can't be binary about it. We can't just say it's university or nothing. We need to, at an early age already, start talking about entrepreneurship, start talking about the skills sector in the SETAs, to look at different options, our artisans that our country desperately needs as well. So we need to boost that, we need to bolster that as well. So that students also, there isn't a stigma. Unfortunately, in our country, for many of our students, there's a stigma attached. If I don't go to university, it means I'm not a success. And that's something I think as a collective we can all start addressing at school, as parents, as communities, as universities. I think there are opportunities for us to improve in that area.
So how has the application process gone? Do you have walk-ins, or are you doing most of your applications online?
Okay, so most of our applications and registrations have been online. We have encouraged as many students as possible to do that online, and it has gone exceptionally well. We have had what we call assisted registration as well, where students had difficulties going online, especially in the environment where there's been load shedding for many of our applicants, anxious about what they're going to be studying, etc. So we have allowed that, where we've had 3 different window periods where applicants, matriculants who've been offered a place, and then they come and register. That's gone exceptionally well for us, and we certainly, as of today, we are closing our first year registration because we set certain targets for ourselves, and we have reached those targets as far as our first year enrollments are concerned.
You know, you said such an important point just now about going online. Is this what you're looking towards going to as Wits, maybe having an online or a hybrid learning method to accommodate those students that have been applying through the application windows?
Okay. So in terms of our own teaching and learning plan, certainly COVID helped all of us in that it forced us to rethink our teaching, it forced us to rethink our approach to teaching and learning. And so over the last 2 years, we really have built up platforms, digital platforms. We have a learning management system called Ulwazi. So many of our classes in the last 2 years, because of COVID, we were forced to be what we call hybrid, which means that it's a blended learning and teaching now, and so now we've moved towards what we call the blended learning and teaching. So for many of our classes, that is face-to-face, in person, but for some of the options, we then allow them to go online. But at the same time, we're also mindful of the fact that many of our matriculants have had 2 years of online, and they want to be on campus, they want to be here. So they
want the contact.
That's it, they want that physical contact. So certainly for our first years, we want them to experience to have an on-campus experience. So we're veering towards ensuring that our first years can experience that. So next week, what we call our Gateway to Success program starts. It's a very exciting program that we launched a year ago, and it means that our first years are on campus for 2 weeks before classes start, and they then experience the full sort of ambit of lectures. They are engaging in environmental matters, in climate change, in energy, in gender-based violence, in time management, how to access digital platforms, because we must bear in mind that a number of our students won't have had the necessary kind of skills training in how to access that. So we spend a lot of time focusing on that for the next 2 weeks. So it's very much faculty-based and faculty-specific, but we're looking forward to welcoming those students after our welcome day on Sunday, where we look forward to welcoming our first years with their parents, and then Monday our Gateway to Success program starts, and that certainly will be their first introduction to on-campus experiences, but they will also learn how to access our digital platforms.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Carol Crosley, the registrar here at Wits University, just giving us an idea of how the registration process is going here at Wits. It seems to be all systems go. First year registrations is about to close before the end of the day today, and within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the first years will be getting an induction to really get an idea of what in-campus or on-campus learning really is about, but some very important points that she's raised around the number of applications that they have received versus the spacing that they get, and a broader conversation needing to be had in the higher education space to really look at the future of how higher education needs to evolve to accommodate just the sheer number of students desperate to get into higher learning education facilities. With that, it's back to you in the studio.